the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain. On this second of two special episodes this month, we are focusing on the 2022 New Zealand High Tech Awards. I had the privilege of speaking with David Downs, Chair of the NZ High Tech Trust, Brooke Roberts, who's co-founder and 3EO at Sharesies, along with Professor Greg O'Grady, Chief Executive at Elementary. That was great, and I think you're really going to enjoy this chat. Also, I should say, special thanks to all those that actually make the High Tech Awards happen. There's so many of you, from those that attend through, of course, to the organising team, the sponsors, and even our esteemed Prime Minister for her attendance. Thank you to also our show partners, 2 Degrees, Spark, Vodafone, HP, Gorilla Technology, Cyclone and Aruba. Now let's jump straight in. David Downs, welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Great privilege to have you on the show. How are you?
Oh, kia ora, mate. I'm very good, thank you. I'm very good. I've recovered from a big awards night a week or two ago, so I'm feeling good.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking of recovery. You've recovered for some pretty full-on cancer as well in the mix there.
That's right, yeah. I've had a bit of a rock and roll ride for the last few years, and that's kind of partly why I do what I do. These sorts of organisations I get involved in, like the High Tech Trust. It's about, when you come back from what I went through, you try and help others.
That's awesome.
Lots of people help me. It's a great opportunity to help other people.
Oh, I love it. Well, I thought it'd be good to hear from you a little bit about the role of the High Tech Trust and really the overall NZ High Tech Awards.
Yeah.
They've been going now for, I don't know, a couple of decades, isn't it,
Exactly.
now, for the awards?
Yeah.
So, and whenever I've attended, look, I'm always just inspired and just really blown away by the incredible things that are going on within broader tech community here in New Zealand. And through the podcast and through all sorts of other things that go on across the country, we do catch some of that, but I still don't think that we hear enough, and that we take advantage of the lessons and the learning of others. But I'm keen to get your perspective on how you see it all fits together and what the opportunities are for us as a country going forward.
Yeah, no, it's great. Lots of stuff in there. I mean, so the High Tech Awards started now, 26, 27 maybe years ago, by a group of passionate people who wanted to showcase what the technology sector in New Zealand was doing. And today that sounds a bit funny, because we all know the technology sector is doing really well, very well. Back then, it wasn't. People didn't know about it. It was very under the radar. And in fact, for many, many years through that 27-year period, it was about just promoting the industry, trying to get the word out there that there was another sector. It's not just about dairy. New Zealand's got other stuff going on. But I think what we've well and truly seen that problem resolved. I think most people in the country will now realise that the tech sector in New Zealand is one of the most vibrant and dynamic and fast growing. But really, that's been the work of many, many, many people and companies. So behind the scenes of these awards is a bunch of volunteers, and I'm lucky enough to be part of that group at the moment. I chair the High Tech Trust, as we're called. But over those 27 years, we've had many, many people go through and do the work to kind of get the industry out there, to the point now where we have, as you would have seen the other week, 1,100 people turned up. We had the Prime Minister, we had multiple other dignitaries and important people, as well as a massive turnout from the sector. And this is one of the things about the High Tech Awards, which I absolutely love, is that at other award ceremonies, people turn up if they're a finalist, and maybe they'll get a couple of their friends along. At the High Tech Awards, the whole tech sector comes together, like whether they're finalists or not.
Yes,
they just love being there, and they support the finalists. And they've got, you've got investors there, you've got kind of suppliers, you've got everyone around it, and it's just a cool celebration and storytelling, and just recognition of success. So there's so much more to it than just winning a prize. It's this whole idea that the sector comes together on this kind of one evening every year.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the variety that comes through in terms of the awards every year. There's always, to me, an incredible variety, and
Yeah,
it seems as time sort of past that we're seeing much broader diversity as well that's coming through in our tech sector from
yeah.
where we were in years gone by, where it seemed quite a narrow group were involved in the tech sector, but that continues to evolve, I think, in a really positive direction.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you noticed that. I mean, that's been actually quite a conscious thing for us as the trustees, that particularly in the last 5 years or so, is to really showcase the diversity of the sector. I mean, you're right. The technology sector for many years was sort of white and male, frankly, and not always, not 100%, but predominantly. What we're now seeing is, youthful companies. You're seeing these incredible Māori-owned businesses. These technologies that are not just sort of computer software. They're deep tech. There's environmental or socially good tech, and so you get up these kind of amazing diversity of not just people but also businesses. And we are really consciously trying to make sure that we showcase the whole variety of the tech sector. I mean, the event the other week was a perfect example. There was Te Reo spoken, quite naturally. There was incredible. The two MCs were women. We just have this amazing, inclusive feeling to the room, which was wonderful. Yes, you have the dignitaries and the people that have been around a long time, and some of the old original founders of some of the biggest companies are there, and the sirs and the dames. But actually, you get a lot of these really amazing young tech companies as well. So that diversity I think that's the strength of the industry, actually.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's probably going to get quite challenging in the future to find what is a tech company, right? Because we're in this world where the threads of technology run through every single business, and if a business is doing well or it's innovating, then technology is probably plays quite an important role in that,
Yeah,
and so. I think we're going to have to probably, do a bit more work on that storytelling of explaining the role that tech plays, because I
right.
guess my personal view for a long time has been, the more that we can leverage the uplift that we can get from technology, the better we're going to do as a nation, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
yet it's quite hard sometimes to highlight actually that what this company or this leader has done, or this group of people has done. A key part of it is the way in which they've leveraged and been innovative with the use of technology. So I
yeah,
think there's still a lot more work to do on that front.
yeah. And you're highlighting a kind of interesting challenge that we, at the trust, there's 7 or 8 of us behind the scenes kind of thinking about, because we're looking at some of our categories, for example, and going, is this really, some of these are sort of feel a bit like old fashioned, best software.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, software is a big part of it, but it used to be very much easier when, technology was something that it was a piece of computer software stuck on a CD or something and put in a box, and that was kind of the reward was for that. Nowadays, there's different business models, software as a service models, obviously. There's different types of tech. So there's medical tech, and innovation. We saw, human health is something that was really focused on a lot in the tech awards just recently. You get this kind of real diversity, and I say social and environmental technology, deep tech coming out of science. But to your point, I mean, that's what's so incredible about it. That in the medium to long run, technology and innovation is the biggest driver of productivity change. And so, yes, any business that's growing and any sector that's growing is likely to have technology as a part of that growth, a big part of it probably. But that's great. We don't want to fight against it. This is very much an award ceremony and process around telling stories in a way that kind of hopefully inspires others. So yeah, 10, 20 years ago, we might have been telling the stories of people who wrote computer software and stuck it on a CD-ROM. Now we're telling stories of companies like Elementary who have incredible technology put on your stomach that detects whether you've got bowel or gut issues. It's like that's kind of out there, but wow, that is tech.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that speaks to that element of the important role that technology plays, and what you said about software. I mean, there probably isn't a large company out there in the country that isn't producing software in some form, right? Whereas
Yeah,
these things used to be, we used to be looking at a software company rather than just at every company. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. What do you see as the role of the high tech awards? What are the opportunities that putting on the awards bring?
Yeah. We're really conscious that we've been doing this for 27 years. It's the opportunity to recognize excellence. So that's kind of the primary thing there is a recognition program.
Mm.
But it's more than that. We hope it's more than that. About 3 or 4 years ago, we sort of stepped back and did a sort of strategy review and said, okay, we've largely achieved the goal of being the place where you recognize success in the tech sector. That doesn't mean we should rest on our laurels. We should always, have the best awards ceremony. That's the other thing we try and do.
It always
But
is awesome, by the way.
It's always
Just
awesome. Yeah,
just to
we do a
confirm.
great job. We're lucky because we're a charity. We basically spend as much as we can on making it the coolest night with the best food and wine and entertainment and all that sort of stuff. But the other thing we've realised is that this is also a way to inspire another kind of generation. As I say, we really have been consciously looking at diversity and how we showcase different types of tech and different types of people that work in the tech sector. And then over the last few years, we've also been really looking at inclusion. And I know that's all very trendy sounding, but the reality is, there's two big problems that we have in the tech sector in New Zealand. One is a talent shortage. Everyone's saying we need more people. We want more people to come into tech. So we've got to inspire a new generation of people to get into the sector. And the second thing is, interestingly, a shortage of Māori, Pacifica, and women in tech. And you go, if you step back for a half a second and you go, actually, don't those two problems solve each other if you do it right? Like, we could have many more people in the tech sector if we were much more inclusive and available to, more females in the sector, more Māori or Pacifica, and we'd be fishing from a much bigger pond. So a few years ago, we set up a kind of a charitable entity as part of the High Tech Trust to funnel some money into getting more opportunities to get Māori, Pacifica, and females and neurodiverse people into the tech sector. And that's going really well. So we're setting up an endowment fund. We funnel any profits from the High Tech Awards into that, and we've had lots of other people support it. Founders and people who've exited putting money in and saying, yeah, actually, it's a good idea. Let's collectively as a sector focus on two of our biggest problems, and we'll get some cut through. So that's where I think these awards now, that's kind of their kind of kaupapa, their purpose, celebrate success, but also make sure that we can grow the industry in a very inclusive way.
Yeah, I think that's really encouraging. I was talking to somebody recently around a challenge that they had with finding the talent that they needed, and in their case, they've recognised that there was a larger pool of people available that were vision impaired in some ways, whether blind
Yeah,
or otherwise, and they thought, well, why?
yeah,
And so they actually targeted that particular group and got some incredible talent that had maybe been overlooked by others. So I
yeah.
think that there's a lot of wisdom, isn't there, to sort of
There's
stepping back.
groups like that all over the place. When you look at it, the fact that traditionally some tech companies would be hiring graduates from computer science programs in university. Well, that's a very narrow pool, and we no longer really need as many people in that kind of deep programmer kind of dev roles. We need designers, we need engineers, we need creative thinkers, we need artists, so you need to go much broader than traditional. And to be frank, you probably need to start earlier. Don't wait for a fully formed developer to pop out of a university program. Go down a couple of layers, get some school graduates or get some people who haven't even bothered going through the kind of mainstream learning, because you're going to get some real creative types in there, and that's basically what you need.
Yeah, look, I've certainly seen that over the years. That you don't necessarily have to wait for people to have popped out of the university system. There can be a lot of people that are passionate and raring to go that maybe haven't done that, and in fact that they're so keen to go that they may never do it. So
Right. And if anything, and I can say this as a computer science graduate myself, did a comp sci degree, albeit a few years ago. If anything, though, university actually tries to drive creativity out of you in the space. And don't hate me, the unis who are watching this, but so you actually want to get people who are coming from these diverse backgrounds that represent the audiences or the consumers that you want to buy your technology or use your tech. You'll get more creativity probably out of that sort of group of people than you will out of, and you might need the odd genius data scientists or whatever in the background, but you probably don't need a lot of them. You probably need this diversity. So go diverse.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's great discussion. Now, anything else that we can talk about as far as sort of maybe where things are heading, where you think we're heading over the next few years, and what sort of changes ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would two things. One is we as a high tech trust have a big problem on our hands, and that it's always hard every year to beat the previous year's awards. Like we had the Feelers play this year, we had a massive screen, we had laser beams, we had amazing food. So every year we're trying to lift the bar. So that's the first thing is like keep an eye out, because we'll keep trying to lift the bar on ourselves. But I guess more importantly is the tech sector. What we're realizing is it's part of this broader story of what is it to be from New Zealand, and I mentioned it in the speech that I did at the awards, is over the last year or two, we've been looking at, how do we tell the story of New Zealand's technology to the world? Because one of the things we want the world to know, is that we're more than just a beautiful landscape or more than a dairy farm. There's a lot more diversity here, and telling that story collectively has a big advantage. I mentioned it on the night that, it's not always just about trying to convince people to buy your technology. It's actually about showing who you are as people. Like, what do you care for? What's important to you? And the finalists this year and the winners definitely come through. You can sort of see the kind of fingerprints of what it is to be a great tech company from this part of the world. They are companies that care about the environment. They care about people. They showcase some kind of social responsibility. It's actually really noticeable if you look for it, that the companies that are really showing us and leading have got this kind of values-based way of working, and that's really exciting too, because I think that's sort of something that marks us out as a bit different than the rest of the world.
Yeah, it definitely stands out, and that was one of the things that the Prime Minister highlighted, and I think sort of etched in my mind from the awards that maybe I hadn't noticed so much previously. I think we're certainly a lot more purpose and value driven than, I don't know. There's certainly a few examples we can look at from the US and maybe other parts of the world that seem to struggle on that basis. So I hope that's something that continues for a long time ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Me too.
Excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much. Look, I would love to get you back for a full and a broader chat in the future, David. But really nice to have you wearing that hat as the chair of the NZ High Tech Trust today, and for your insights on the sector and on the High Tech Awards.
That's great. Thank you for the work you do, Paul, and highlighting the success of the sector too. It kind of inspires everybody to get involved. So great stuff. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we all play our part, then things just get better and better.
Yeah, can't wait.
Great. Thanks very much, David. Cheers.
Thanks.
Brooke Roberts, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here, and congratulations on winning the Xero High Tech Inspiring Individual Award at the NZ High Tech Awards on Friday.
Kia ora, Paul. Thanks heaps.
So, look, what I'm wanting to do with these chats is just to get a little bit of an insight, because when we're at the awards, whether you're watching, folks have been watching the live stream, or they were there in person, there's only sort of so much that everyone gets to capture. And so I thought it'd be great to do a little bit of a roundup and hear a little bit from the winners. And you've won one of the really key awards, and lots of other inspiring individuals in years gone by that have won this one. But this year it's all about you, and I know you like to be humble and just sort of talk about the business. But maybe you could give us a little bit of a roll back to how you got started in this world of business and tech and leadership.
Yeah, how did I get started? I grew up in Manurewa in the kind of wop-wops of Tauranga, and then got an opportunity when I was 10 to move to the US, where I went to elementary and middle school for 4 years, and then decided I wanted to come back to Aotearoa. So came here and got a scholarship to go to a school in Hawke's Bay. And when I was at school in Hawke's Bay, I started to, I was always a really hyperactive child. And I'd get the school reports of, Brooke's distracted in class. And mum was so used to the parent teacher interviews going, I was always, getting a bit told off after them. But it was in high school that I found out how to channel that energy and passion. And when I started studying business studies and technology, which actually was sewing and textiles back then. But I think it was at high school where I started to really be able to hone in on those business and creative skills there. And that's where I started to run businesses when I was at high school, and really enjoyed that and thought I'd continue doing that, but decided last minute I would go to university. So packed all my stuff in my car and drove down to Te Whanganui-a-Tara, realized you don't really want a car here and had to sell it pretty quickly. But it was really great to move here. And I thought I'd just come to university here in Wellington and leave straight away and go do my OE. But incredible opportunities kept coming up here with AJ Park and Kiwi Bank and Xero, and then ultimately met the crew of 6 of us that started Sharesies. And so it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, look, you have done some fascinating work, and I guess it seems sort of looking at the things you've done, you haven't sort of got into those roles half-heartedly. You've sort of thrown yourself into things, 100%. So, any highlights that you can share from those times before starting Sharesies?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was reflecting the other day going, gosh, I've always cared so much, like when I'm doing a role or whatever I'm working on, like if I really care that it's purpose driven and it's driving a change that I want to help, create in the world or be part of. And so I've always just go all in. So that's very true, Paul. There's so many great memories. I think one thing in particular that I am really uh, the support we've had has been really incredible. In Wellington, we've got a really strong tech community here, from, the founders of Xero to Trade Me, those businesses kicking off here, and the support that started to, and the infrastructure around startups and growth companies here has been fantastic for us. And we were able to get some great support early on, and I really appreciate that. To also now being a founder, I get, I've founding journey is always fun, and it's great to have 6 of us as part of the journey. But Sonia and I, who are 2 of the co-founders of Sharesies, we're in this support network, I guess, of other female founders, and it's just great having that support around, because it's really challenging and it's quite hectic when you're trying to balance family and creating a company, and you feel like you're dealing with all the new things every time. But really, there's a lot of people who have been through this and can normalize those situations and provide that support and guidance. And so just feel really thankful to have a community where we feel like a rising tide floats all boats. And I think that's incredible of what we've got here in Aotearoa.
And so those people that helped you along the way, how did you find them? How did that come about? Because it seems to be quite an important part of being able to certainly move at the sort of pace that you've moved at with Sharesies, to not only to have a sort of good base in terms of expertise and so on, but also being able to draw on so many other other people's wisdom and experience. You don't have to kind of make all the mistakes yourself.
Yeah. I think from working at Kiwi Bank and Xero, and also going to university, and the pool of friends I got there, I think that really helped early on. And then afterwards, I remember early on in my career thinking, or when I was looking at starting businesses, I was like, oh, you don't know if you should share your idea. There could be intellectual property there, or, you want to make sure it's, a bit more sorted before you go and share an idea or something you're thinking about. But now I've learned actually it's so good to share those ideas or share those thoughts, because typically the person you're sharing that with is like, oh, I know somebody else who really cares about that. You should be connected here. Or, oh, this person could really support you. And so I felt from that's how the community started to grow, from when you're sharing your thoughts and others are opening up their connections or sharing their perspectives back, and things really flourish from there. And so I think that has really supported us throughout our time with Sharesies.
Oh, that's great. And so, walk us through how it did come together in terms of finding your co-founders and that piece, because it's a pretty important part of the Sharesies story, and I'm sure part of your own story as to how that's all fallen into place.
Yeah, it's a very long story, and I'll try and whittle it down. But essentially, Sonia Williams, who's one of the co-founders, had the initial idea behind Sharesies. She was sitting there, she had $50, and she's like, "Gosh, I wish I could feel like I get ahead with this. I feel like I want to be able to invest in a fun way and build wealth that way." And it just felt like so inaccessible. And then she got connected with my partner, or my husband, Leighton, and they're both working at KiwiBank at the time. And Leighton, when he was 17 years old, started an investment club with 13 of his friends, putting away $50 each week. And that started a just savings account. And then they're based in Hawera, so the first thing they purchased was a cow or part of a cow or something, and then it kind of grew
Love
from
it,
there,
love it.
all from $50 a week. And so this is where Sonia's like, well, it is possible. And then we were like, you shouldn't have to be Leighton's friend to be able to have those opportunities. How do we make that more accessible to more people, and how can we eliminate those barriers completely when it comes to investing in developing wealth? And so Leighton and I were actually looking at starting a company with Richard and Martin, who are the also co-founders, who are developers, and we were tutoring with ideas in the fintech space. And Sonia and her partner Ben, who's an incredible designer, were thinking about these ideas too. So we decided to all come together and create Sharesies, and it's just been an incredible journey ever since. And that's really a bit about how we formed. So we all didn't really know each other well, but a few of us knew each other really well, given that we're partners in the business, but and in life. But that's how we initially started. But we spent 6 months doing pure customer research before we even started prototyping what Sharesies could be, because we all came together around the common kaupapa that everybody deserves the equal opportunity to grow their wealth. But we wanted to know, what does that mean to people? Do they want investing in their life? Are they an investor at the moment? How do they feel about money? And from talking to hundreds of people, we really were strengthened by these stories and the real need to change the trajectory of wealth development here in Aotearoa and globally. So that's really what got us really fired up to quit our jobs and go right into creating Sharesies.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Now, one of the things that sometimes can be a challenge is working out what each person's role is, especially when you've got a group of, go-getters that have all got, leadership talent. So how has that played out? Because, you were the chief executive on your own. Now you've got the 3EO model. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm really curious.
Yeah. So with Richard and Martin, who are developers, pretty clear what their roles were early on, and they had worked together for ages, so they knew how to split up that workload really clearly. And for our designer, incredible skill there, so very clear. For Leighton, Sonia, and I, we definitely have a massive overlap in skills too, but different perspectives, which is really important when we're making decisions. It's great to have those perspectives around the table. But when we initially decided that I'd be the CEO, we were in an incubator, and they're like, cool, you've got to pick a CEO. And we kind of pushed back a bit about that. And they're like, no, you need to. And so we sat down at a local cafe and just had a good natter about it. Well, what do we need in a CEO? What are we looking for? And essentially, because I was going to be doing a lot of the capital raising and things like that, they thought it made sense that I would take up that role. So I was the CEO, but really it was, I always felt like it was a bit more on paper, in principle. Leighton, Sonia and I were the three that went full time straight away. So we were always working really closely together, and there was no hierarchy in the way that we worked. And then I went on maternity leave and had my first child, and Leighton and Sonia co-CEO'd. And then I came back, and then when I went on maternity leave again, they co-CEO'd. And when I was coming back, I really thought we should do this differently. Now we don't really have to live in that construct of one CEO. We've already proven that co-CEOs work. Why can't we do 3EO? Why can't that be a thing? And so we talked to our board, and we didn't know, we are part of the board, but we talked to the independent directors to go, well, what do you think about this? They're like, yeah, let's give it a shot. So we trialed it for 6 months or a year, and now like 2.5 years on or so, it's really natural to the way we work. And it really works for us, given we've always worked really closely like that early on. It just really works for us, and I'm so thankful to be able to share that load and share that araha together and have those really great rich debates, and at the end make decisions that ultimately move towards creating financial empowerment for everyone, and that it really drives us. So it's great having the 3EO model.
That's good. And are there any challenges that others should be aware of if they're thinking of doing something similar?
Yeah, I think thankfully, we've worked together now for 5.5 years, and we really know each other's strengths, and we're really able to lean into that. So having that is super important. I think even more important than that is making sure not only are you or you're all really clear on the kaupapa and really driven towards that, but you also share the same values and how you want to work. And that's something all 6 of us founders sat down and did pretty much, I think, before we even incorporated Sharesies, was really thought about what type of company we're creating, and what we wanted it to feel like at Sharesies, and what are things we never want to see happen in our company that we've seen in other places, and really had those robust discussions. And from that, we easily, from all of the bullet points of what people said there, we easily themed up what our values are. And those values, of in it together, always care, and chase remarkable, really drive us. And I think if you're really values aligned as well as purpose aligned, you can have as many debates as you want on how to do things. But if your what and your why is super clear, like if you're really clear on why you're doing what you're doing, and actually how you want to go about it, then what you're doing can be really well discussed and debated, and knowing that you're all caring about making a decision that's best for Sharesies and our stakeholders and the impacts we want to have.
Do you is there an aspect where it slows you down, or does it just sort of operate as you've always operated prior to? Because sometimes these what I've seen anyway, my own circumstances, is that titles don't always matter, right? And so just changing the title doesn't necessarily have any impact on how you're operating anyway. When it's key decisions, if there's a group of you involved, you make those together. A title changes, that doesn't necessarily change it. Has that how it sort of played out for you?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Ways that it's played out beneficially, to be fair, it's actually made us move faster, I'd say, because we're like, cool, you're on this, I'm on that, you're on that, let's go, and then
Right.
we share the insights back with each other.
Yep.
And we have that trust to go, you've made that decision, great, or let's debate that. So I think it enables us to move faster in that regard. Titles don't matter, but we did notice pretty early on it did matter externally, in terms of if you're invited to present at something, or when you're dealing with some certain stakeholders, they want the CEO there. So it actually makes us move faster in that regard too, because we're like, we got 3, take your pick, and we can kind of share that load, I think, which is great. So in a
Brilliant.
lot of ways for
Yeah.
us at
Yeah.
Sharesies, we're able to move at a better speed and make better decisions from having this model.
Now, for those that don't know, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the scale of Sharesies now, because it's kind of mind blowing whenever I see current numbers about Sharesies growth and valuation as a business and so on. It's it's quite eye watering. What can you share?
Yeah, so at Sharesies, we started with a founding team of 6, and now we're a team of around 230 people who are all driven to create financial empowerment for everyone. We have just under 600,000 investors on our platform, so around 10% of Aotearoa, Sharesies investors, which is awesome. And together they currently have around 2 billion invested, either in New Zealand, Australia, the US, or managed funds. So it's incredible that so many people now have access to investing and being able to invest however much they want, when they want, and build their portfolio over time.
That's great. And I saw a valuation figure a while back saying that the business was it $500 million? Is that kind of the current view?
That was our valuation at our last raise.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. It's you're certainly building. It's not just the $50 investments now in terms of what obviously what you built for your own investors, and of course helping those 600,000 New Zealanders as well. So it's really fantastic. So where to from here? What's next for you, and what's next for Sharesies?
So for Sharesies, we launched in Australia last year, so there's a lot of opportunity there to really create more financial empowerment in Australia. There's so much more to do here. I remember one of our founders' mums going, "Oh, that," really early on, like 3 months in, "Oh, that Sharesies thing, that's pretty much done now, eh? You've sorted that." It's like, no, I think it's our life's work, really. We just keep noticing these doors and these barriers that people are locked out of, and we just want to open them up. We're really wanting to support more businesses supporting their teams, their employees, being
Yes.
shareholders. So that's something that we're focused on. We think it's a really important part for anybody working to be able to own a part of the company that they're working on when they're listed. So that's something we're really keen to support and passionate about. Along with enabling more and more people to become investors and feel confident in building their portfolio and feel confident managing the cycles of the market and keeping that long-term view. So that's a lot of what we focus on too. And then we've got some new product that we hope to launch later this year, which I'm really excited for, but just heaps going on, which is a bunch of fun.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Brooke Roberts, for taking the time. It's a pleasure to have you here on the New Zealand Tech Podcast, and congratulations again on your win at the NZ High Tech Awards.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate it. Ka kite anō.
All right, it's time to talk with Greg O'Grady. How are you, Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I'm great.
Look, now your company is Alimetry, is that right?
Correct.
I've heard a couple of different pronunciations, Alimetry.
Alimetry is correct. It stands for Elementary Telemetry, for those who don't know. So it's a merge of those two words into Alimetry.
So maybe a little bit of background. What's the history of the firm, and how have you got to this current point where at the NZ High Tech Awards you won in 3 categories: the Taki Auckland Unlimited Most Innovative High-Tech Creative Technology Solution, the Soul Machine's Most Innovative Deep Tech Solution, and Endace Most Innovative High-Tech Hardware Product. So that's quite a round of wins there.
Yeah. Well, thanks to the judges. It was incredibly exciting for the team, and recognition of just a ton of hard work that's gone in over the last few years. So to give your listeners some backstory, so we started 3 years ago. We're a spin-out from the University of Auckland, and we build wearable medical devices to non-invasively diagnose gut disorders. And these are really common. About 1 in 5 people carry around with them some gut symptoms, and we diagnose those. But yeah, so, it really is deep tech. So we came out of the university on the back of maybe 10 years of research, really world-leading research on gut electrophysiology, and actually merged with my co-founder, came from the US, from San Diego, and he brought with him years of research as well. And that was kind of on and off research. It was very serious, but it was really clinical and physiological research. And that's where the Deep Tech Award comes from. There's over 100 scientific articles that went into that period of really world-leading research funded by the Health Research Council and other bodies. And then 3 years ago, it kind of got to a point where it had matured where we got very excited by the data that was coming out of the trials. And it was clear that this had real potential to make a clinical difference and therefore a commercial difference in a space that had been kind of woeful for doctors for a long time. Very hard to diagnose these disorders, a real diagnostic treadmill for patients, and really quite unpleasant. A lot of testing that goes on out there at the moment. So we kind of teamed up with Armin Garabans, my co-founder, and we brought our kind of knowledge together and formed Telemetry. And since then, we've just been going for it as fast as we can to build a product that will make a real difference. And that's, I think, where the other 2 awards came from, just the sheer volume of problems we had to solve, which were really substantial, in getting what was a research kit, like a spaghetti of wires and this kind of awful suitcase of electronics, into something that's wearable, usable, slick, and actually quite beautiful at the end of the day in a way that's useful to people, was just an incredible amount of design and engineering that went into it. And I'm just really glad that was recognised by the judges as being significant, because our team, they just tore it apart and for years just really solved problems to make that happen. So an exciting milestone for the company winning these awards, and an exciting time for the company looking ahead.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us, what is the data that you can draw on, and what's the wearable device that folks need to wear?
Yeah.
Is it something that they wear for a long period of time? How does that fit together? And what's the technology kind of piece?
Well, there's actually kind of 5 products in one, and it is a medical device. So we're talking a highly regulated product in a really tough manufacturing industry to get through these standards and this process of getting it to market. And it's really innovative. So the one of the most innovative pieces is the stretchable electrode that's placed over the abdomen. It's got a very high density of electronics on it, and that's all screen printed using kind of cutting edge techniques onto a stretchable membrane. And then we do this very difficult process of putting these hydrogels and adhesives on top so that it can be worn. And then one of the key problems we had to solve was latching it onto a piece of hardware with the rigid electronics in a way that didn't have a million wires. And we managed to eliminate every wire, so it's completely wireless and is completely wearable. So then there's that wearable piece of hardware called the reader. And then as well as that, we have an app so the patient can log their symptoms, and that also controls the device. And then there's our cloud server and our algorithms that do all the processing. And finally, the real product that you've asked about is really the report that goes back to the clinician. And at the end of the day, everything else is to enable this report, which is the thing that the clinician and the patient ultimately care about. And that's where we bring through all that data, and what we're doing is measuring, just like the heart has an electrical rhythm and drives the muscle of the heart, and a whole bunch of things can go wrong with that. The same is true of the gut, and that can drive symptoms. And so we're measuring exactly the same process of the body's own natural electricity that generates that muscle. And we measure that in a way and interpret it with the symptoms into that report. And the clinician uses that to aid in their diagnosis of these disorders.
Yeah, I've heard of gut issues sometimes, just stretching on for very long periods of time. And, it just, people getting stuck with an issue, but it not able to be, diagnosed or addressed. How much do you think telemetry is going to be able to help in those situations, or are there quite specific situations where technology is going to be relevant?
Yeah, the potential we think is huge. So as doctors, we're very good at diagnosing structural problems with the gut, things you can see with scopes, with scans and biopsy, and look at under microscopes and these sort of things. We're very good at that side of the diagnosis, kind of the hardware of the gut. But for the software of the gut, what drives its patterns, very poor. So there's been a big black hole there in those, and those disorders are actually more common. Things like chronic indigestion and nausea and vomiting, things that can really disable people's lives, actually, some of these symptoms, or just really reduce quality of life. And the diagnosis has been really poor for doctors for a long time. So that's what motivated me to get into this in the first place as a clinician, and that's what drives us today to be in this space, is actually solving these really meaningful problems. And so that's where the company's going. We're starting in the stomach. There's the rest of the gut to consider as well, and there's a whole lot of other ideas we have, but it's about getting this beautiful gastric telemetry product into the market now and making an impact in these gastric symptoms.
Exciting. I'm just kind of curious around, what is the data that you're able to collect, and is it some sort of machine learning that you do? Are you sort of comparing with previous situations, or how do you get to that a report that's useful, or is that something that's still quite technical? It very much is up to a very switched on clinician to be able to read and understand.
No, it's not. It's relatively straightforward, but the algorithms behind it are really hard.
Right.
So the secret sauce in this, we've got a lot of patents, but the really hard thing has been those algorithms that pull out this really weak data. So the stomach is 100 times weaker than the heart. And so to extract that information and make it meaningful and visualize it, we had a lot of important algorithm work that our excellent, amazing engineers have worked out the way to do accurately and reliably. So that's one of the key steps for us. We don't do any AI yet, but obviously we've built this beautiful system called Adam, the telemetry data management platform. And Adam is busy building the data banks for us to switch that on. And our team are planning real ways. There's a lot of hype around AI in medicine. People throw it around all the time. Product doesn't use it at the moment and doesn't need it, but we definitely see very specific use cases in future where we will hopefully bring that into the product to enhance it.
Now, how have you got to this point in time? Because you've got a team of 30-something people.
Yeah.
That takes a fair level of, funding and recruiting and all manner of things to pull that together. And it's all happened, in a fairly short space of time since the business has been, formally founded. Obviously, there's sort of, 10 years prior to that. But how has that journey been, and raising funding and so on?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's a ton of hard work in the building side of things. The ecosystem at the University of Auckland is really good now. Uni Services have been a wonderful partner in enabling us to spin the technology out and get a base. But it's still up to the individuals to obviously make it happen. No one else is going to do it for you. We're very lucky to have a founding team who came out of the university with us. And then we've recruited out of the university some amazing people as well, some real talent. And then we've been lucky to have one of our first people join us was a regulatory expert from Israel who brought that kind of very specialist medical knowledge, and Hani from Fisher & Paykel Healthcare who brought a COO level of knowledge for commercial as well. And together between this exec, we've been able to build up a lot of specialist leaders in the company as well for manufacturing, because that's complex. The regulatory, the quality system, complex. It's all very specialized. And so we've been lucky to attract a pool of talent who are just wonderful people to work with and really driven, really know their stuff, and also really fun. So it's been a blast.
That's great. And the regulatory side, I mean, to me, whenever I hear about that sort of stuff, doesn't sound like much fun, but presumably there are some people that, enjoy the challenges of working through it and figuring it out. Is that a really long, winding, challenging path, or was it, reasonably laid out for you?
No, it was, the average time for a company to get through FDA is about 5 years, and we did it in 3, and with a very complex product. So, we've eaten a lot of glass to get there, ground through it. But the way to look at it is it's a must-have in this space. It's a highly regulated industry. That's the reality. And we've embraced that quality system and made it an ally as much as possible to deliver the best quality product we can that has the safest profile for patients. And that's our motivation. So that's the industry we're in. It's also, once you've gone through it, quite a good barrier to competition. It really establishes your brand as one of, we've gone through this rigorous, strenuous process,
Yes.
and we've built this platform. So it's tough, it's rewarding, it's part of the journey, and it's medical devices. So you're not going to get away from it if you're in medical devices space.
Sure. And now you've gone through that, what does that mean from a commercialization perspective? What's the road ahead look like?
So it's exciting. We've launched now in New Zealand and recently in the UK and the US. So we've got market clearance. That's what it means, market clearance. So you can sell. But for us, it's the start. The next challenge for medical device companies is to get adoption, evidence, and ultimately reimbursement for these products so that you can really turn on the sales. And that is also a non-trivial process and requires a lot of specialist expertise and effort. So that's the phase we're in now, and it's actually pretty exciting. The data is coming through really nicely. We just had a paper accepted today into a journal called Science Translational Medicine, which is one of the major medical journals in the field. So we're getting that kind of traction around that evidence now that will build into adoption later. And we've just signed on our first US major hospital as well. So, it's happening, but the thing is in medical devices, again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And as a clinician, I see this side of it as being the most important. If we can convince ourselves that this is really filling a need and we show that through the evidence, then it will get adopted. It's that simple. And then it will get reimbursed and paid for according to our business model. So that's the pathway, and it's exciting to be in this phase of it now in market.
Yeah. So with the hospital you mentioned, who are on board, how did these sort of early relationships work? Because you're new, and that brings with it probably some exciting things, but also I imagine there's a level of of unknown for anybody that sort of partners with you. So how do you bring those folks on board? Do you have to sort of incentivize that, or how does that tend to look?
So we're lucky in telemetry in this respect, because this is where that deep tech, that science foundation really matters, because healthcare moves at the speed of trust. It really does, and you can't miss that. So we have this track record of scientific excellence. We're the world leaders in this space, and so being able to then present a product, to people actually I know at a personal level, a lot of them being a clinician and someone who's researched in this space, and on the editorial boards with them and so on in the past as well, has a degree of credibility and reputation that we've earned and is real. And so that's a lot of our brand in the medical space, is building on that credibility and delivering now the next iteration of this, which is an actual product they can use. So that's the deep tech of telemetry that I think the judges saw in the award as well, and that hopefully will be the plank for us to commercialize on as well. Yeah.
That's exciting. So, where to from here? If we were to look sort of, 5 or 10 years out, what sort of, what is the potential, in the market? Things go well in terms of, people and revenue and so on. Anything you can share on what that could look like?
The vision is pretty simple. We want to be the standard of care, and we want to be in every hospital in the world. And so that's the path we're on. And we're going to make these devices in New Zealand. We're going to grow a company in New Zealand, and we're going to deliver on this science ecosystem as kind of birth telemetry. And so we're going to deliver on that in New Zealand as well. That's the vision of the company that we're committed to. There will be future products, but this one is our focus at the moment. We see the platform, though, as providing future opportunities in the gut. It's currently gastric telemetry. It's a diagnostic done in the clinic. There's a lot of other possibilities that could be done on this, but we're not getting ahead of ourselves yet. We'll just get this one going and then hopefully build a really sustainable, profitable company that matters with a purpose.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. And lastly, are you looking for staff at the moment? And, what would you be looking for?
Yeah, we are. We're hiring maybe 4 roles at the moment in New Zealand and also in the US. So we're looking for customer success, operations engineers, and manufacturing. We're looking for a head of product and community. And we're going to have other opportunities in clinical liaison roles that are coming out as well at the moment. So we'll have a careers page up on our website. We have a super awesome culture at telemetry of people who really love working there. So look on the site. If you're looking for a job, approach us. Thanks for the pitch opportunity there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, all the best to the telemetry team, and thanks for taking the time, Greg O'Grady, to share a little bit about the company, and very excited to hear how things progress in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's been great, and just to say thanks for our team who earned these awards, and it's real recognition of how much effort they've given and care and dedication into this product.
Yep, I hope you'll be having a good celebration with the team if you haven't already
Got a couple
started
of
that.
magnums of champagne from the awards night, which may or may not be open on Friday. We'll see.
I was chatting with someone. We were sort of sitting outside the doors, and he was like, "Well, did you notice there's a whole lot of people walking out with bottles out of the awards?" And we hadn't clicked that was there was some obviously champagne being given out. So he wondered whether someone was pilfering a few bottles.
I think they've earned. I think they'll enjoy them too.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, thanks,
Paul.
Greg.
Great.
Cheers. Well, thanks everyone for listening in to this special episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, then I would suggest you follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're a podcast listener in audio, then of course on the likes of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so on. If you're more for the videos, then of course you can find us in the varying places that we stream. LinkedIn actually probably is the best place if you want to get access to the live streams that we do, and you can follow myself, Paul Spain, there on LinkedIn, and also follow NZ Tech Podcast there. We're also across on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. All right, well, thanks again to our supporting partners for the New Zealand Tech Podcast, Aruba, Cyclone, Gorilla Technology, HP, Vodafone, Spark, and 2 Degrees. All right, catch you on the next episode. See ya.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.